One of the greatest pipe band drummers of all time, Reid Maxwell's recently released 118-page Taking No Shortcuts collection of 900 carefully honed exercises is already in its second printing. Designed for any level of drummer, the book collects the exercises that Maxwell created, revised, and continually tweaked over more than 40 years. They are the techniques taught to Maxwell's hundreds of students, including the drum sections of his Grade 1 Simon Fraser University, winners of the last two World Pipe Band drumming titles. Maxwell's son Grant, himself one of the world's best snare drummers, has played a significant role in pulling together and publishing the book. After all, Grant Maxwell was guided by his father with the techniques and taking no shortcuts since he was a toddler. Reid Maxwell's fame as a drummer comes with his leading Grade 1 drum corps to no fewer than 6 world titles, and he remains the only leading drummer in history to win the World Pipe Band Drumming Award with 2 bands, having achieved it in 1987 with the 78th Fraser Highlanders. The collection's orange cover reflects the older Maxwell's trademark orange baseball cap that has become part of his personal brand. Exclusively for Pipes Drums readers and viewers, we caught up with Reid and Grant Maxwell for a brief 2-part conversation about taking no shortcuts. It's Pipes Drums, and it is late November, and we are really thrilled to be speaking with the legendary J. Reid Maxwell of the Simon Fraser University Pipe Band, as well as his son, Grant Maxwell, a renowned drummer in his own right, very accomplished. And we're going to talk about, a fantastic new addition to the Drummer's Library that it's just come out. By Reid. It's called Taking No Shortcuts, and it's already sold out its first printing. Phenomenal stuff. So thanks very much, guys, for taking the time.
Very welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So Reid, why don't we just talk about, Taking No Shortcuts? Tell us what it's all about.
The inspiration behind the name and sort of how it sort of came about was when I immigrated, which is over 40 years ago now. I was very young, very naive, and sort of figured that things that I knew, people at certain levels, well, they just knew it because, well, that's kind of what we did, And I very quickly found out that there were people playing things and they had taken incredible shortcuts, as I would call it, to get to where they are. So their foundation, it would be like building a row of houses and not putting any foundation in at all, just sort of building up the walls, putting a front door, a few windows, a couple of lights, and away you go. And so it's like I was really quite surprised at that, and I wondered if that's because, after I sort of noticed that, I wonder if it's that because it came from Scotland, where it's more, an everyday occurrence to see a pipe band in a town and stuff like that, or what was that all about? And so that's kind of how it came. I was kind of overwhelmed as a youngster in how much people seem to take shortcuts. And so they could play a few things that were at a pretty high level, but then when you went and scaled things back from that level, it would be like you were showing them something that was more complicated than the things that they could play. And I was really kind of baffled by that. So that's kind of I wanted to teach. And the first thing I did, I was asked to go to do a workshop for Jim Sim in Chicago years ago. So 83, I believe it was. And I figured I need to put something down on paper so that I would have a little handout, because you can't just hand out drum scores, And so I just went with the very basic things. So the very first edition of Taking No Shortcuts was 12 pages long. And it just had like mumadadas, paradiddles, triplets, like the most basic things, so that I would go and take people through how you play the basics. And then it just kept on expanding and expanding. And here we are.
Yeah, it seems like, Grant, maybe obviously, you were we would imagine, a student of Reid's teaching from the very beginning. I can't get much more, from the start than you probably. What are your memories of some of those early times of taking no shortcuts in some of those exercises?
For me, it was like I didn't seriously start to get like involved with my drumming until I was about 11 years old. But attending like Piping Hot Summer Drummer, actually before it was Piping Hot Summer Drummer, when it was just Summer Drummer, attending that, and you know, the version of Taking No Shortcuts before this one was like the 59-page version, and having that as a handout in the class and just learning through that, and then having that as sort of like the base of like all rudimental like phrases and exercises throughout learning drumming, and then getting, you know, and then becoming a teacher myself, you know, and then using that as well. It's definitely been a tool that, like, from day one, really, that's like sort of got me to the level where I'm at, for sure, you know.
Yeah, you read, you know, Robert Malcolm Memorial, the Simon Fraser University system, the Grade One band, obviously. Are these are some of the things that you can find in the book, Taking No Shortcuts? Have you applied all of that, you know, to both of to the entire organization, as you've taught, you know, dozens, maybe hundreds of drummers over the years?
Yeah, I would say that. So as the kids come through beginner class, they get through into the grade 4 band and grade 3 band, they learn from all that stuff. And then, I mean, people coming into the grade 1 band, they've gone through it. So they I don't know if they use it with, some of them probably still use it with their own students and stuff like that, but it's always there. It's always sort of been there as a resource. Just kind of, you know, keeping people on track. One of the things that I think is really important is that you'll know this being a piper, and I don't know if this is a piping and drumming thing. And as much as pipers and drummers are different, if when it comes to pipe banding stuff, I think there's a lot of it the same. So I always talk about the unwritten rules, not secrets, but just things that were parted to me by Willie Bell way back. Reid, don't do that. Watch this, do that. When this comes up, do it that way, and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of those nuances. And I think listening to Piper and friends over the years, there's a lot of nuances that doesn't come out that way on a piece of paper. And so when you sit beside someone who knows, they share that with you. And so I tried to share what was shared to me in the same way. And I try to make sure that people know that the people who teach, we don't have any secrets. We're not trying to keep secrets from you so that you'll keep coming back for more. I want to tell you about the unwritten rules. And so here's some of the unwritten rules that you might not have considered. And I'm a believer that there's a complicated way to play something, or you could learn the unwritten rule that makes it easier. And at the very beginning, you're trying to make it as easy as possible. When it comes to the very high levels, a grade playing in a grade 1 pipe band and some of the very high level grade 2 bands, you can play everything. It doesn't really matter. But trying to get them there, I think step by step is an easy way to go. And I think I said in the preface of the book that there are, you know, like 20 plus years ago when I did the last sort of handwritten version of Taking No Shortcuts that I've been giving away to the world for the last 20 plus years, it was just kind of going at things. But in the last 20 plus years, I've been learning more as a teacher. And I hope in the next 20 plus years, I'll still be teaching because I'll learn more about how to part it. Because if I can't learn anything in the next 20 years, I'll be disappointed in myself. Because there's just so much to learn. Like, you know, every time I teach, like for a week-long school or a weekend or something like that, you hope to learn one thing yourself, and so you can start to see how you might use that and become a better teacher. And some of the things that I do learn and pick up, I find really interesting. I mean, I always say to everybody, we're all geeks, us piping and drumming guys. So get over that. We're all like that. We love it so much and we're so into it. So don't feel bad about it. And just trying to be encouraging of people, especially youngsters. And when youngsters get into that teenage years, the things that they, you know, start to get phobias about, and just try to break those kind of things down.
Well, I was going to ask, Grant, it comes to mind, that this is kind of a philosophy of teaching. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the piping world, there are different schools of thought when it comes to Pibroch and things like that, and ways of imparting it and styles. Do you think you as the second generation Maxwell, drumming and you've got kids, and do you think this is going to be, or maybe it already is, a school of thought, a philosophy of drumming?
I think the philosophy and the school of thought comes with the individual, but ultimately, I think the foundation of how that school of thought comes about, I think all of that is present in this particular book. To be honest, like the black notes are the black notes, and the white space is the white space. And of course, it's up to the people to interpret the way they do, just like kind of Reid was saying. But I think I ultimately think that the most main things, the most important pieces to form anyone's school of thought come from this, and have come from the previous versions, and have just been sort of like expanded on, and kind of come to this ultimate form of like this particular book.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's also up to like the individual or the teacher sort of has their school of thought, and that's really cool about pipe banding in general. Is it's good that we're not stuck in one way, and there are different ways to come about things. I think that's really positive for the art.
Stay tuned to Pipes Drums for the second part of our conversation with Reid and Grant Maxwell.